Kids listen to it. They'll tell you, yeah, Dad, that's the way things go. Even if they're not the ones that's there. I guarantee you, 30% of our children, they're not going to be out like that. They're not doing that. Allah blessed them, Allah protected them. But the other 70%, that's where they are. And I'm talking about what? The scholars' children. Yeah, the ulama and the fuqaha.
네, 학자들의 아이들도 그런 70%에 들어갈 수 있다고 말씀하십니다.
The students of knowledge, their children. Yes, that's correct. The khatib last Juma, his children. Those who recite the Quran so beautiful on YouTube. You know, those, you know what I'm saying, give the most powerful, you know what I'm saying, wow, you know what I'm saying, their children. But you know what? Because we're Muslims from different cultures, you know, we don't like to be shamed. So we don't talk to each other about what happens with our daughters, what happens with our sons. We don't talk about that, you know. But guess what? When you travel around the world, you know, and you're from America too, you can't hide nothing. You know that these are things that take place. So, brothers, you know, there's some things that's happening right now that if we're not on top of things, guess what? When the fruit falls from the tree, anybody can get it. You feel what I'm saying? You got to be able to, as a father and a mother, to understand the fruit is hanging. The fruit is hanging. And if you keep procrastinating, talking about she ain't ready yet, he ain't ready yet, I want her to finish college. I mean, what you smoking? What you smoking? You want her to finish college? You want him to finish college before they talk about marriage?
네, 담배를 피우는 게 아니라 지금 당신이 무슨 말을 하는지 모른다는 의미로 하시는 말씀입니다.
Oh, the fruit has fell to the ground and you're not around. Yeah, get that part together. The fruit has fell to the ground and mom and dad is not around. So we got to make the proper preparations and can't procrastinate and lie to each other. We got to keep it real.
How can we help the youth that engaged in zina and want to repent sincerely while avoiding shame?
저는 생후 15개월이
We got to have workshops for the young people. We got to have workshops. A workshop, just let them come inside and sit down and talk. You know what I mean? With no shame. I mean, they're not going to curse. They're not going to talk no graphics. There's nobody going to, ain't nobody going to say the actual face of what they did because they don't have to. We're not no clergy. You know, we're not no priests. Ain't nobody got to come to their mom and dad and confess. But we need to talk about it because guess what? Boys talk with their boys. Guys talk with their homeboys about almost everything. They might not mention the girls may not mention the boy, but they talk about things to their best friends. So if mom is her best friend, guess what? Sooner or later, she's going to talk to her mom. And what should we tell young people when they do these things? Tell them to make tawbah. Tell them that tawbah
네, 그들에게 우리가 무슨 얘기를 해야 될까요? 회개하라고 얘기해야 되겠죠.
is real. Tawbah is not just a ceremony. Tawbah is not just about being sorry. You know, Tawbah is not even just to be asking for forgiveness. Tawbah is a formula. It's a protocol that's established between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the doorway that's open all the time for us to enter and bear ourselves in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is Sami'ul Alim. Allah He already saw.
네, 모든 걸 아는 그 알라 앞에서 우리가 모든 것을 내려놓고 회개하는 것은 우리가 잘 알고 있는 공식입니다.
And Allah He already heard, and Allah He already knows what has happened. It's you walk through the door and say, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've done wrong. You know that. And oh Allah, I'm sorry, I'm going to do my best not to do that. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please forgive me. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make a commitment to change my life and to close the doors and to be with different people. And try to reconstruct my life. Allah help me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me and help me. And Allah give me the strength. And Allah give me the resources. Give me a new set of friends. And Allah keep me vigilant. Allah keep me alert. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save me even from myself. That the Prophet asked Allah to protect him from everything, even when the twinkling of an eye. Now, you know how fast the twinkling of an eye happens. So things happen to young people that quick. You can't say it won't happen. It happens that quick. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we got to talk to these young people one-on-one, or we got to host workshops. Sometimes a young person just need to walk into the door and talk with somebody that's keeping it real, a counselor, an OG. that's not going to judge him or her, that's just going to advise them, that already knows where you've been. They can tell. They already know how you're rolling. They can see you. They can advise you, and they're not going to tell your parents. Somebody that's going to keep your secret. That's what kids are looking for.
네, 부모에게 말을 하지 않고 자신들의 비밀을 지켜줄 사람에게 얘기하고 싶어 할 겁니다.
Somebody they can talk to that's going to keep their secret. A counselor. So this is what we need to do with our young people. Let them know, listen, things happen. You know, and things happen real quick. So if something happens or it's beginning to happen or it's in the motion of happening, come and talk to me. I'm your dad. I'm your friend. Come and talk to me. I'm your mom. I'm your friend. That's what you got to be able to do. Now, if you can't do that, it's going to be hard for us to be able to not only counsel our children, but also for us to correct what has happened when something does happen. Why? Because they're going to go to who they confide in. And when they go to their homeboys or their homegirls, that's a fool sitting with another fool. Why do I say it's a fool? You show me a young person, I show you a fool. Because they're going to be engaged in foolishness, making mistakes because of their emotions and their naivete. They're going to be making those kind of mistakes over and over and over until they get old enough, you know, to realize, you know, that how they protect themselves. So I think it's about keeping it real and having opportunities where our kids can, we can call it sit and shout. You know, sit and shout. That means that they can get stuff off of their chest or off of their breasts. They can get it off and say and ventilate with somebody that's not going to judge them, so that we can see how things go and we can make the right assessment. We can make the right evaluation. We can make the right, come up with the right prescription for them. And it's all about confidentiality. It's all about being sensitive and being their friends. And we ask Allah to allow us to be able to do this as adults. You probably may be asking yourselves, and it's a legitimate question, check with all the advices that you're given about marriage and, you know, and about counseling and about preparing and what to do and how to protect ourselves and, you know, selecting the right person and all these different things. Is there a platform that you've already put together? Is there some kind of a manual or set of tools, you know, something that you have that would be accessible for young people and their parents? The answer is yes. We have a program called Nia to Nikah. Nia to Nikah, the road to marriage. You know, Nia, it means having the proper intention. From the time you want to get married, from the time you feel you want to get married, from the first time, you know, some of you start having those we can call it those leanings, those inclinations towards marriage, because to think about marriage is moral. You know, to think other than marriage is immoral. You know, to make preparations for marriage, that's halal. That's like wajib. But to start thinking and planning on how you want to see and who you want to see and what you want to do and all that, that's haram. I mean, that's leading to the haram. It's wrong. It's immoral for you to be thinking like that. Okay, and it's haram where it's going to lead. So, niyyah, the correct niyyah, to nikah, the enjoyment. That's what the word nikah means. Doesn't mean marriage. Nikah is a part of marriage. It means enjoyment. So niyyah to nikah, the road to marriage. Myself and my colleagues, we developed this platform formally about 20 years ago. We've been using the platform, talking about the platform, presenting the tools and components of that platform for the last 20 years. And so as a result of that, alhamdulillah, we have facilitated more than 2,000, 3,000 people to get married in different places in the world when they were having problems. They didn't know how to formulate the nikah. They were having problems developing the nikah and coming to some agreement with their parents. You know, the parents was talking cultural, the kids was talking reality. They wanted to get married, but then the parents are saying, no, you got to marry a Bengali, you got to marry a Pakistani, you got to marry an Indian, you got to marry a Saudi, somebody from the Khalij, a Khaliji, you got to marry an African, you got to marry a Bosnian, you got to marry who we think you should marry. And I'm not saying that children should not be inclined towards whatever the parents recommend. They should. It's a fact that most arranged marriages, they last longer than the ones that young people formulate for themselves. I'm going to repeat that. Statistically, the proof is that most marriages that are arranged between the parents, they last longer than marriages that are arranged between other than the parents. That's a fact. But now, in terms of the ratio of that, we can kind of like say maybe 70-30, 60-40. So what about those young kids who happen to meet each other in high school and they love each other? And they're now in college, they love each other. But guess what? There are different tribes or races or ethnicities or back cultures, and they love each other and they know each other. They've been talking, they've been writing, they've been dating, they've been seeing each other without doing anything haram. And they know now, that's the one I want to marry. But the parents are saying, no, absolutely not. Well, there's a big problem there. There's a big problem. And that problem is that, the fruit is already hanging and they already hanging. You feel me? The fruit is hanging and they hanging. And soon they're going to be banging. If the parents is not smart enough and can put their cultural pride to the side, okay, and facilitate these young people to get married, even though they're from different ethnicities, different cultures, they are the 30% or the 40%. So our brothers and sisters, we've been dealing with these problems because, I'm from America. And in case you guys don't know, the African Americans or the indigenous Muslim Americans, those that were born Christians, we came into Islam. We had a taste of the Jahiliyyah. And even our children have a taste of the Jahiliyyah because it's right at the steps. And to keep it real, because we had a taste of the Jahiliyyah, we understand it better than most people, who are born Muslims. And so it is that way Allah, He wrote it. I didn't write it, just the way Allah, He wrote it. That sometimes we have a better insight about these issues than people who are cultural Muslims, that is born within a Muslim family and all of that there. So Niyatul Nikah, it's not my thing. It's not a different fiqh. It's not a madhab. It's not a bunch of rules. It is where we do intake. We do intake on a prospective bride or groom. An intake means that we take not their CV or their resume. That's just where it starts at. We do an interview. We find out who are they, who are their parents, what's their background, what's their age, what kind of work do they do, what's their inclinations, what's their social circles, are you seeing somebody right now? What stage are you in? And seeing somebody, have you selected somebody? Has somebody selected you? Are you in some social media platforms or groups or whatever the case might be? Have you talked to your mom and dad about this here? Have you looked into the background of that person? Do you have a wali? In the case of the brother, do you have somebody who can act as a representative for you? So all those kind of questions come up in the intake. After we do the intake, girls and boys, we put it into a database. Yeah, we put it into a database that we control. A database that we designed. We put all that into a database. Why? Because it's a matter of confidence. Your children can go to a bank and open up a bank account and have their own PIN code. Guess what, dad and mom? Yes, they can. In the United States of America, in Canada, in Australia, and all the Western countries, your children do not need your permission at 13, 14 years old to go and open up their own bank account and save their own money, spend their own money. They also don't need to come to you and tell you that they're talking or thinking about getting married. They should. but in many cases, they don't want to because there's too many cultural barriers in place. So having this experience, and we're not suggesting for children to do that. Let me get that clear. We're not promoting your children to do that. I'm only saying children will do that because they can do that, mom and dad, because they got the tools sometimes. And guess what? They're living on the edge. When they're on the edge, mom and dad, you don't catch it. Like I said before, you don't catch it because you're not sensitive. You in cultural la-la land or whatever you want to call it. The grapes fall to the ground. The fruit falls to the ground. And it still remains fruit. It still remains fresh, but now it's on the ground for anybody to pick it up and consume it. Don't wait for that. So we have Lifeline GPS, and you can go to KhalidYassin.com. Go to KhalidYassin.com. You can register there, and you want to do the intake. We don't have to see you. We don't have to meet you. If you have confidence in me and my staff, we can do an intake on the computer, right there, virtually. And then after that, we can start moving towards, we can help you formulate your NIA. And we can start the protocols and the steps towards selecting a prospective spouse and leading toward your marriage, contacting your parents, contacting your wali, assigning you a wali if you don't have one, assigning you, a coordinator if you don't have one. And so that you can get married, and then after that, you can get your enjoyment, nikah. So go to KhalidYassin.com and we'll start the process for you, inshallah.